NowGem, today we are at the Sultan of Kewick restaurant having lunch and finding out about Langham Partnership, how they support and can be supported. And wait for the end where we get to meet Femi, a beneficiary and contributor to Langham, his wife, friend, and the owner of the delicious Indian restaurant where we ate papadum, samosas and kebabs. Sit tight.
Hey, well, look, it's great to be here at the Sultan restaurant in Kewick, where we've just had a lovely lunchtime meeting where people have joined us to hear from Femi Adelaide. Femi is our African Supremo. He looks after our preaching network for Langham in over the whole of Africa, and he gave us a great conversation. And next week, on Wednesday, we've got Mark Mennel, who looks after our European preaching network, and he's going to be speaking in the major Kewick conference, as with Femi. And then also he's going to be hosting a lunch as well, where he will take some special questions from our Langham group. So if anyone's around and listening to this, then do make sure you book in and join us for that lunch. I guess the thing that you need to hear if you come to this cold is what Langham's all about. Well, Langham, our founder, John Stott, had this picture of the church that was a mile wide and an inch deep. And he said there's lots of effective organizations looking at the mile width and looking to grow that width, but there's not many that are looking at the 1 inch depth and looking to deepen it, to give it the structure to be able to address secular humanism, to other militant religions, and really just a lack of ignorance and whatever as well. So he wanted to increase that depth, and what Langham does, it works through 3 programs, of which Femi and Mark are critical in the preaching network globally that operates in 120 different countries. And then we also have a literature program that runs globally as well, that publishes 50 or more books each year. And then we also have a scholar program where we sponsor PhD scholars, so people who've got their good first degree, are in good standing with their local church, and come from an area of the world where it's difficult to get that level of education. Langham sponsors them to the right university anywhere in the world for the 4 or 5 years to get their PhD, on condition that they return to their sending church and sending country for at least 10 years. So it's a big ask, but that's the 3rd program stream: scholars, literature and preaching. And so do come along, listen to the recording of Femi if you can find it on YouTube.
Yes.
And also come along, join us for lunch next week, and then you'll have a good idea of the preaching movement that Langham looks at.
And on here there's your website, right?
Yes. www.langham.org will get you through.
Oh yeah. Okay, cool. Thank
Just
you very much.
Google Langham Partnership and
Okay.
Uncommon to have Christians and Muslims living in the same homes and finding common grounds. What's the common ground between our different faiths? So you will not hear of things like Boko Haram or religious hostility or persecution in southwestern Nigeria. It's predominantly in the north. And in northern Nigeria, the segregation between ethnic groups and their faith is more prominent than in other parts of southern Nigeria. But we encourage those who go through our training programs, who go through the seminaries and biblical schools, to engage more in cross-cultural ministry, even in those difficult contexts. And significant progress is being made.
It's encouraging to hear. I'm being part of a conference with Capra, which was
Capro.
Capro, yeah.
Yes.
And the stories these guys were telling of the community tensions in North Nigeria were quite horrific.
Yeah.
And I wondered, in the context of training, how do you help churches who basically, let's just keep to ourselves, because otherwise we have community conflicts. Whereas we have a mandate from the Lord to be seeking to share this good news with all of our neighbours. That's a really challenging thing, isn't it, that you say in Northern Nigeria?
I studied in Kano, predominantly Muslim city.
Yeah.
Today, I still have friends from my college days, Muslim friends that I engage with. It's really a question of relationships. The mistake many mission agencies make is just to go and teach them tracts or preach at them without the relationship. Where the relationship is, you find those barriers broken down. Let me tell a story. Once I was driving from with my mother and brother from Jos to Lagos, and I had a flat tire. Then I had a second flat tire and was stranded. It was getting dark. And then somebody stopped to assist us because 2 flat tires, I had used the spare. It was a Muslim gentleman. So he asked how he could help. That was Christmas Day, my wife remembers the story. So he said he'll drive me to the next village.
He's not smiling.
Where the vulcanizer, she was nervous.
Yeah.
So this Muslim said he knows some Christians who are into repair of broken wheels and tires and the like. So he took me there. We met them, and then they said, sorry, this is Christmas Day, we don't walk. And it's the Muslim gentleman who is telling them, but this is your brother. This is your Christian brother, why didn't you fix? They refused. So he drove me to the next village, where I eventually got my wheels fixed, tires fixed, and he drove me back to where my car had broken down. So the question is, who is my neighbor? Is that my Christian friends who refuse? Because they are observing Christmas. Or the Muslim gentleman. Where the relationship is, the barrier keeps getting dismantled.
We had one more question, I think, from down here, but then we'll bring to a close the session.
Okay.
You've been made welcome, both here and at Keswick. But tell us a little bit about how on earth, from Ghana, you ended up being a platform speaker at the Keswick Convention in Cumbria. And so the first steps, presumably, are something of your journey to faith.
Yes. My journey to faith had nothing to do with Keswick. It began actually as a response to Southern Baptist Initiative. So I had gone to a Baptist high school, Baptist mission school, of spiritual renewal, and the main speaker was a lady who had come all the way from Mississippi in the US. Led us to faith in Christ, 2 Corinthians 5:17. I had questions for her because when she was preaching, she said something like, I pray all the time, even when I'm driving. And I was a young student, and so I said, I really see after chapel. I said, how do you pray when you are driving without having an accident? Your eyes shut. And she said, no, you don't have to close your eyes when you're. But she really mentored me beyond that week of emphasis. She was in touch with me with letters, with cards. That encouraged me when I got to university. I continued with the campus fellowship. And that's how I was raised.
And that's the year before last. Actually, your comment about the support of writing letters, I'm sure he wouldn't mind me saying this, and he's known to many people here, but someone called Dick Lucas has been a very powerful ministry in London at St Helens, retired, but I saw him at his home about 7 or 8 months ago.
Wow.
And as I left him, he said, oh, John, could you possibly post these for me? Because it's a bit tricky for me to walk the length of the post. And he gave me a wallage of about 20 handwritten letters that he was writing just that last night to some of his contacts that he was mentoring in the faith. So, again, to hear from you that emphasis, if you have are working with young Christians, leading them to faith, or your church is engaged, get the letters written. It's incredible, even in this day and age, where everything is fast and digital and multimedia or social media anyhow. Actually a handwritten card on that.
I actually have a letter from Dick Lucas.
It's framed on your wall.
Uncle John, if you don't have it.
Well, this is how the saints work, isn't it? I mean, many of us can give, I certainly come to those letters that have come through. So you came to a position of Christian faith, you went about in local church in Ghana?
Actually in Nigeria. Nigeria was home. I grew up in a place called Jos.
Jos, right. Okay.
And I was part of the local Baptist church. But I will attribute my growth more to university fellowship, campus fellowship, where we had inductive Bible studies and we were challenged to go out on evangelism. So that was more in Zaria, in central Nigeria. I studied in Zaria, studied in Kano, and we began to have outreaches, evangelistic outreaches to Nigerian public. And my sense of being called to ministry was twofold. The lady who led me to Christ, very Frank Patrick, was deported in in the mid-70s back to the United States, accused along with other missionaries of being CIA spies who had a military government then. And then I got a letter from her some months after she had been deported. She sent it, again letters. She sent it from Liberia. She had returned to Liberia, doing ministry there. And in her letter she said, "Femi, will you consider giving some time in your life to Christian service? Because a day may come when Western missionaries will no longer be allowed in Nigeria." So I treasured that. And then on an outreach to Zinde in Niger Republic, Zinde was the former capital of Niger Republic. I met a gentleman there, Dr. Leonard Navarra. I was shocked that he had a PhD, but he was living in a mud hut. His bed was made of clay with just a blanket on it. And I remember my own professors, university professors in sociology. Navarra had a PhD in sociology. And I asked him, "What are you doing here in the desert?" And he said, "God sent me here." And I had significant conversations with him, and he challenged me to consider, again, repeating what the lady said, sometime in my life, to Christian ministry. So I made a commitment in my journal. I give God 3 years. 3 years.
So what happened in those 3 years that you gave? I mean, how did that go?
Well, when I finished my degree, I joined the National IFS movement, NIFES, as a traveling secretary. We call ourselves traveling secretaries. Okay? And it was really like being a fire brigade. I didn't have any theological training. And the common teaching then was, once you are baptized and filled with the Holy Spirit, you don't need any theological training. And I believed that until I came across a book, a very small book, Your Mind Matters, by someone called John Stott. My mind, but the Holy Spirit is there. But then I said, when I read that book, I began to explore, because my thinking then was, after Acts chapter 28, it's our generation. But I became interested in church history and the like. I said, okay, after 4 years of lack of biblical studies, I'll go for graduate studies. So I went to the US, Wheaton College, to do graduate studies in Christian history and theology. And I had my copy of Your Mind Matters with me. It was in Chicago after my studies. My wife is here, Afi, that Uncle John came visiting. And he had gone to speak at Urbana, speak at some other events. And for some reason, he wanted to meet with international students. So I had gone to meet with him, and then he invited us out for breakfast. You are surprised. Because Your Mind Matters, I had an impression of a giant. Now we met Uncle John, simple, interacted, he asked me what my plans were, and actually challenged me to consider doctoral studies. So he introduced me to Andrew Wallace, and I was planning to go to Aberdeen then, but then I was recalled to come and lead the student movement in Nigeria. But I kept my relationship with Uncle John, because then he actually offered me a scholarship, which I deferred because I had to go back to Nigeria to lead the movement. And after 4 or 5 years, I was ready to go back to school.
So you then defended your thesis and got your doctorate. And at what point did you formally become employed by Langham? I mean, how obviously you had the association with Uncle John Stott, but at some stage he mentioned the Langham Partnership, or it would have been in its embryonic form then?
Yes, I would say that, because when he first offered me the opportunity of studying as a Langham scholar, I didn't know much about the partnership. And it wasn't like he's trying to recruit disciples. No, it was to equip me for ministry in my context. And then I became more aware of various aspects of Langham ministry, including literature, the scholarship program, and especially the preaching. But related to the preaching, I was in a meeting called by Uncle John at Taipei.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Many will know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that was where we first had a significant conversation on his vision for the majority world, and it encouraged several of us to be involved if possible. So I volunteered then. I was still serving with IFES. We were in Zimbabwe with my family, but we started being involved in helping to train pastors and laypersons. We started in Ghana 2003, Zimbabwe 2005, Nigeria 2007. But I was doing it more as a volunteer. It was years after I left IFES and World Vision. I started briefly with World Vision. And I came on board with Langham Preaching about 8 years ago, formally. I was invited to head or to lead preaching ministry in Africa.
Perfect. So, apart from having to put up with Ruth and tell us a little bit about your role as leading Langham Preaching in Africa.
I don't do it alone. I have a team.
Yeah.
A team of 9 other persons that I work with. So we meet as a team, strategize, and then plan different aspects of training. Essentially, we have something like a 3-year program. We're extending it to 4 now. In the first year, we teach people foundations of biblical preaching, mostly pastors and laypersons. And then in the second year, some context, we teach preaching from the Old Testament or preaching from the New Testament. And in the third year, we'll reverse that. And we've done that for several years. But more recently, we added a 4th year, which we call the training of local facilitators. There was something in the video that says Western missionaries are not sent to other parts of the world to equip and train. But local leaders are equipped to train their own people. So the training of local facilitators is an important aspect. But much more than that is the circles of accountability. Because one major challenge in our context is that church leaders, pastors are so highly revered that there's no accountability. Even when a bishop is going wrong, the question is, who's going to approach the bishop to correct him or to point out this error to him?
Of course, we have nothing like that in the UK. I mean, everything is so orthodox and foundational and accountable that.
It's always said for our training programs, we need those we are training to be in circles of accountability. Some parts of the world is called preaching clubs. But the idea of clubs don't go too well in our context. But moving clubs, they think of boys brigade, girls brigade. So we came up with an indigenous name, Ushirika. Ushirika in Kiswahili means fellowship. So it's a fellowship of preachers who meet once a month. In some places they meet twice a month to pray together, to encourage one another, and to discuss difficult texts. What does Paul mean by beware of dogs? When we don't have dogs around, let's beware of dogs. So in those circles of accountability, people are encouraged to share and reflect together on difficult texts or issues they're facing in their congregations. So I work with a team. Frank Shai,
who you saw on the video,
yes, used to coordinate our ministry in all of Southern Africa. But passing the baton on to younger people, we now call them facilitator at large, because somebody else is serving as the regional coordinator. So we have a good team, and the work is growing.
Can you give us some idea of the scale? I mean, I just, over my desk I get reports that Ruth and the team issue, and I see that in any week there might be training courses in about 10 different countries, and with comments like, we're expecting 120 to come to this level 1, or 40 to this level 2, or what's the sort of scale of that movement in Africa?
It's significant. In a place like Nigeria, within a month, there can be about 500 lay leaders and pastors in various training programs. Langham training, either the first level, foundations of biblical studies, or preaching from the Old Testament, or the training of local facilitators. The same in Ghana, the same in Southern Africa, in Kenya. So we're
already up to 2,000. I mean, seriously, that is something desperately that the UK Church needs to hear. Circles of accountability first, but then also the mutual accountability and the learning together and holding each other to,
Yes, in fact, now, most of our preaching movements, we call them preaching movements, don't send anyone for the seminars who have not been in a local Sharika group. So the ground zero level 0 is being in that circle of accountability before being sent into the training programs. But the work is also great in terms of entry into new context. In the past year, we've initiated Langham preaching in 6 new countries. In West Africa, we call them the 3 Gs of Guinea-Conakry, French-speaking, Gabon, French-speaking, and the Gambia. Those are the 3 Gs. And then beyond that, went into Cameroon last year, and then this year, we've been in Namibia, and the latest baby of Langham preaching is Madagascar.
That's an extraordinary story just over the last 12 months, or incredibly encouraging. I want to give people the opportunity to ask some questions that might have been bubbling up in their minds. But
I start with the positive and the negative. The positive that I'm so excited about is that many theological institutions are inviting us to help train not only their students, but their faculty members. They love our curriculum, and they are asking us to bring Langham preaching teams to train their heads of department who do homiletics, because the approach in several Bible schools are so theoretical. And so people graduate from those institutions and yet preach in ways that are not faithful to the text or relevant to their congregations. So I was on a Zoom call with presidents and leaders of about 12 theological, just north of Ghana. In Ghana, we're engaging with 4 theological institutions, including the Church of Pentecost Seminary, which is the largest church. Exciting also is the fact that we're getting entry into predominantly charismatic Pentecostal churches. In the past, they will resist really. Like me when I was much younger, the Holy Spirit will lead us into all truth. Who needs? So that's encouraging.
great, that's positive.
Yes.
And that's great. To be able to respond to invitation is any educator's dream, to actually have people asking for you to share. But yeah, but what's the other side?
The other side is the prevalence of the so-called prosperity gospel, the health and wealth gospel, that is so attractive, in particular to young people, but tend to drift to such congregations, and their leaders are people who are trying to engage who are unwilling to learn because they feel, no, what they have raised is the way to go. So we need prayers in that area that will have more open doors to such church leaders and congregations.
Thank you. Well, both noted, I hope in people's minds.
So, hi everyone, could you introduce yourself, please?
I'm Sam Ibokwe.
And
Afi and
I'm Femi, Afi's husband.
amazing how you all met. Could you please quickly touch briefly on that? How you?
Yeah.
How I met Femi.
Yeah, maybe.
That was years ago when I was doing my national youth service in Nigeria, Sokoto, Nigeria.
Okay.
And I was part of the Christian Fellowship. And we invited him to speak to us on discipleship.
Okay.
And that's how we first met.
And how did you meet Sam?
The first time I felt called to work with student ministry, he was the person who engaged me and brought me into service. And then about 30 years ago now, or 33 years ago now, so I've kept that bond and that touch, and then, just a little.
Okay, so what would you say is the uniting factor?
Christ.
Jesus Christ.
Christ bringing
Yeah.
us into Christian ministry.
Yeah.
And into the same vineyard. So we work together.
As a family, actually.
Yes,
It was
as a
like
family.
a family. The nicest half was
It's a family, a lifeless family.
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
And how would you say the UK has enhanced that? Because there are many people that have this negative thing about the UK and all that. You know, being colonialists and all that. So how has the UK helped themselves?
There's no doubt that there are aspects of the UK that are colonialist. Every nation has some kind of stereotype, but within it, you find people that are different. If people are not different, we won't even come to Keswick. So some of those barriers, some of those obstacles or perceptions are being broken down by like-minded like-minded people in the UK and other parts of the world, which is the reason we can be in the same room this afternoon.
Absolutely, and that's all because of Christ. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Roman. I'm one of the owners of Sultan of Kewick. We opened and established in 2018 in this small town called Kewick. We serve Indian/Bangladeshi food. Our background is Bangladeshi, and one of the main reasons why we opened the restaurant is because in our area, in our village in Bangladesh, I've seen my parents, my family, we kind of invite everyone together and serve food. So ever since then, my dad's been doing it, so I followed his background, and yeah, we've been here for now a good couple of years now, and yeah, we enjoy meeting different people. We have many people from all over the country, even around the UK, actually around the world. We had people from America come last week, Canada, so we like to see different people, we like to meet different people, and it's also, you get to learn new things from different people, so yeah, come round to our restaurant.
Can people book online?
No, we haven't got our booking system yet, but if you give us a call, that's the best possible way, or follow our social media, Sultan of Kewick on Facebook or Instagram.
Okay. And the number to call?
The number to call is 0176877 72222.
Thank you. Just the food has been delicious, by the way. Thank you for feeding us.
If you haven't yet, please subscribe, like, and follow for more content like this.